Welcome back, everybody, to We Are TPM with myself, Kyle Teixeira, sitting here with our co-host, John Teixeira. This week, we are here to discuss a common topic lately, the pricing power in this market. Power of pricing this market.
Power of pricing.
If you guys have any interest in talking about this, talking about any of your properties or anything we discussed today, give us a call, 817-818-9039. Shoot us an email at showmethemoney@wearetpm.com. John, what are we talking about? Power, like superpowers? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing
We
here?
talk about properly pricing all the time, don't we? And we've even done past podcasts on it, but we're in a new unique market that we haven't been in a while. And it's important that it's probably more important now, more than ever, that you properly price your home. And the reason is because you don't want those vacancy days, right? We talk about those vacancy days being the biggest cost to our homeowners and investors, and being stubborn about what I could have got for rent 6 months ago and continuing to try to get that now as things are declining in some areas is just not smart.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true for all markets. That's why we've talked about it a lot. But specifically for this one, we have, for example, less renters than people looking to rent than we have inventory, right? So even if things aren't even in areas where they're not in decline, you're still competing at a way higher rate than we have been over recent years. So even at $25-$50 of stubbornness can make it not to where you just don't get a tenant. You don't even get people looking at the home because they see, 7 units just like yours, and 4 of them are priced at a certain rate, and 3 of them are $50 to $100 over that. They're only going to look at those 3.
Yep,
so
that's right.
But before you at least get eyes on it, some stuff going on.
It's just basic supply and demand, right? So when I'm running what we call comps, right, to figure out what the market value is on something, what I'm finding almost every time is there's 1 to 2 buyers / tenants for 10 to 15 units. That's the reality. That's the ratio that we're seeing in a lot of neighborhoods. And not all neighborhoods, some of them are still, some of them aren't quite that bad, but they're all worse than what they were 6 to 12 months ago.
Yeah, and if it takes you a month to rent something longer than it would have if you priced it correctly, well, really, if it takes you a month to get to the proper price, right, then you're losing a month of rent that you could have had, and take that month divided by 12. That's the difference in that's the power of what you didn't get from pricing it correctly.
Yeah, we've talked about vacancy days, so I don't want to overkill it, but even if you don't have a mortgage on a property and you pay cash for it, depending on the property, you're paying a minimum of $50 a day for that property.
Well,
that's
potential income still.
That's
considered too, right?
That's absolutely
so
just
what you could have made.
Taxes, insurance, and lost revenue. There's no way that very few properties are less than $50 a day. So when you do that math, you figure, well, I know I used to rent this for $3,000 a month all day. Well, now you can't. And if you stay there for 30 days, in your example, at $50 or even $100 a day, that's costing you, way more than it would cost you to just reduce that rent.
Yeah, and we've talked about, like, when taxes started going up, about how the market rate for your mortgage and the market rate for your rent are not directly correlated. Yeah. So some people have gotten underwater on rentals where they're like, well, this is my break even. This is how much I spend on it per month. So we have to lease it for at least that. And the reality is, how much do you want to, if the market's telling you it's too high, it's too high. You got to rent it for money. Otherwise you just got air. You can't pay that mortgage, whatever the amount. You can't pay it with nothing. So there are scenarios where that's happened. That's why this has always been long-term investing. So even a monthly hit in long-term investing can play out. Play the interest rate game and a whole bunch of different factors.
Yeah, we have everything going against rental rates right now, don't we? I mean, we got an election year, we have chaos in the world, we have
Maybe not everything.
Interest rates.
Interest rates just went down 0.5 basis point for the first time in 4 years. So
that's true, but it's going to take a while for that to affect rental rates.
Yeah, I know.
The trickle down effect to the rental rates is quite a while, but hopefully, and I'd like to do a future podcast on this, hopefully we can inspire our investors to run into the fire, right? And to be like those buffalo we talked about that could go into the storm, because now's the time to snatch them up, to buy them while everyone else is fearful. Now's the time to be doing it. Everyone else is running and staying away and freaking out and buying too much toilet paper. And we need to be buying real estate right now.
Buying too much toilet paper.
I went to the store yesterday and there's no paper towels and no toilet paper, all because Iran sent off some missiles.
Oh, okay.
I guess I'm dating this podcast now. If you're listening to this podcast 2 to 3 years from now, it's still apropos to this kind of a market, right?
It's true,
You think people listen to our podcast 2 to 3 years later?
I don't know. We'll have to find out in 2 to 3 years, I guess.
If you listen to this 2 to 3 years later and Iran doesn't exist anymore, I want you to send us an email. Well, where? Show me the money. I say, hey, I just listened to your 3-year-old podcast.
But yeah, I mean, what it does directly affect, you were talking about the trickle down rate of rental rates, but what the interest rate changes do affect is investors'
sales price.
Sales price. Those are all trickle down effects. The immediate effect is what they can get their monthly payment down to if they, for example, refinance. So I'm not saying that 0.5 basis point is what's going to get all the investors to refinance these things they got at 7 and 8, but mortgage rates have gone down in before that, and after the basis point change, they've gone down more than that. I wish Trevor was on here to tell you exactly how much, but it's definitely at least a point.
I closed a 5.1375 recently, Kyle. I mean, it was a buy down. They did buy it down to that rate, but I'm seeing, I got quoted yesterday. I got 2 quotes for 5.375 and 5.25. So it's getting down to a manageable level, at least for FHA.
Well, I'm about to close a, fingers crossed until things are closed. We generally don't talk about it, but it's a cash out refi on an investment property that's in the high 5s. So
You just did it. You just changed the whole course of this podcast.
Well, the point is, if you can do that in the high 5s, then you should be able to do something to get low 5s. And a month or 2 ago, we were talking about 6s, 7s.
Yeah.
So,
I love it. I feel like we need to do another podcast on that now and probably get Trevor back in here, like you said. But back to pricing properly. It's just so much more important now as things are declining, as there's question marks, as things are changing and the world is on fire. Makes it even more important that you don't get stubborn, that you listen to the market, you properly price so that you can be the 1 or the 2 out of 10 that are rented and creating revenue with your investment property.
Well, and the perspective is everything in these markets. So generally you're going to get less than you would have if you went on at the proper price, because now if it takes you a month, it takes you 2 months, it takes you 3 months to get down to where you should have been. Now you're a properly priced rental with a high days on market, which people think, all right, well, what did the other people that looked at this properly priced rental over the last 3 months think about this? Is there something wrong? So now it still feels overpriced because it's been on so long. So now it's got to go even further than where it would have gone 3 months ago. So say in that scenario, you could lose 3 months that you could have gotten, and now you're at a lower price. So there's some high negatives to not properly pricing it, and people get so caught up on $100 a month, $50 a month, and when it can cost you way more than that.
I think the nutshell to what we're trying to say here is, in the past, we've been able to say, look, Kyle got down the street, got $1,700 for his house just like mine, so I should be able to do that too. That's the basic way of ascertaining market value, right? But now more than anything, we can't just look at Kyle got $1,700. We have to look at, well, Steve is over here and he's only asking $1,400 for the same house. So I have to compete with that in my marketing or even in my renewals. I have to make sure I'm not running my tenant down the street to Steve's house, because now I've got a vacancy. And so that's the kind of thing that you have to pay attention to. That was $300 is kind of extreme, but the point being, whether it's $300 or $50, supply and demand is the name of this game for ascertaining market value right now more than any other time.
Yeah, and speed to lead, that whole thing is pretty important too. You got to make sure that you're not dragging your feet in ascertaining the market price.
Yeah,
market's telling you. It takes you a while to understand.
7 days, man. If I go 7 days and one of our listings is not being shown, we don't have applications on it, nobody's looking at it, we got it wrong. We have it wrong, and we need to move it immediately. And how much do you move it? You move it kind of accordingly to whatever the rental rate is. So,
and I've had a lot of questions about that, and it's just not just like if you don't get applications, and they'll hear 3 renters for every 7 out there. Well, if you're properly priced and there's 7 properly priced, those 3 renters are still going to look at all 7.
That's right.
So if they're not looking at your house,
you still want to be the one chosen.
Yeah, even if it's not,
good point.
You're not even at a point where people are looking at it. They're not looking at it for a reason.
That's a good point. So which means you need to be competitive, not just competitive, but you need to beat the market in some cases.
Yeah, because you're not even playing the game if you're too high. I mean, that's really what it is. Hey, they're not even looking at you. You're not even competing.
I know we've probably killed this subject, and we're probably about to wrap it up, but we can share with people one of the marketing things that we're doing. One of the sets of properties we just picked up is a good example of supply and demand, where they were marketing the homes. They have 10 like homes, all in the same subdivision, brand new, and they're marketing them all on to the world, all 10 of them. So what that did, to the point we just made, is it created a worse supply and demand problem, where we came in with a different marketing plan and said, hey, instead of doing that, let's just market 2 of them at a time, right?
Because they're the exact same floor plan. So
they're all the same.
And a lot of supply and demand can be psychological, right?
Yeah.
That's what apartment complexes do and stuff like that. Yeah. If they had 300 units available, and they obviously they might tell you that if you ask, but if they threw out 300 listings, you'd have 300 competing. So it's all perspective.
You got to create urgency, and even in a case like that, even brand new apartment complexes know how to create urgency and market it properly. So that's supply and demand. And you know what? Speaking of that, what apartment complexes do? They have services that do nothing but call apartment complexes to find out what their rate is every single week. So they get weekly reports on what all the apartments around them are renting for this week, because they change all the time. They'll do concessions. They'll do $500 off move-in. They'll drop their price for the first 3 months. They'll do all kinds of stuff. And if I don't know what the apartment complex down the street is doing, and all of a sudden everybody's going over there and nobody's walking in my door and my vacancies are increasing, I'm at, a disadvantage. They literally on a weekly basis do that. That's how important supply and demand is. So if it's important to apartment owners, then it should be important to everybody, of all forms of real estate.
Well, and even if it's not calling, if it's looking at the system we have for looking at comparables, you have to trust it. You have to trust what the market's telling you.
It doesn't matter how you ascertain it. Just with apartments, that's the only way you can do it is by calling them, because there's no place where you can go. There's no database. There's no MLS. There's no, you know what I mean?
Well, there is, but
well, I'd like to know where that is.
First-hand accounts. They have like apartments.com.
Apartments.com is just a rental site is all it is. Apartments don't actually use that.
You'll find us on apartments.com. So. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions or want to make sure you get the power of pricing correctly, because it's very powerful. It's costly. Costs you time, headaches, all those things.
Yep.
It's powerful. Give us a call, 817-818-9039. Shoot us an email at showmethemoney@wearetpm.com. We are out.
Gone.